Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk to you about Japanese maple seeds. Now there's lots of resources that you can find telling you about how to pick the seeds or cut them off the tree, or you can collect them and when to do that, and how to put them through what they call cold stratification cycles so that the seeds can prepare themselves to grow. And there's differing opinions on when you should be planting your seeds, whether you should do it immediately once you pick them or doing it in the late winter, early spring before the plants start growing. So I'm not going to get into a debate on the best way to propagate your seeds. I'd rather let you try whichever method works the best for you in whatever region you're in. But I'll tell you a few tips today about what I do, and maybe you'll find some of these useful. In particular, there's one tip that I really like that I think you'll find really interesting. Okay, so one of the things that you'll typically see is that people will be cutting the seeds off the plants, and they'll tell you about when the right time is to do that. Now, the problem I have is that I have a bunch of trees, and I'm not going to be climbing up a ladder to cut the seeds off of the plants. So I have to wait till they fall off the tree. And to be honest, that's what nature does when it's ready to drop a seed onto the ground. It just does that. And so there's nothing really wrong with waiting till the seeds naturally fall off the tree. And the other thing is, if you want to collect seeds around your neighborhood, the ones that fall off the trees onto the sidewalk, you're just going to have to pick them up. You can't go and put a ladder out in front of someone's house and start cutting the seeds off their trees. So in any case, with the seeds falling off the trees, you have two options. You can pick them up as soon as they fall off the plants, or you can wait through the winter when the seeds will start to grow naturally and then pick them off the ground at that time. So I've done it both ways. I started off picking up the seeds off the ground in the late winter, early spring when the trees started to leaf out. And the way I knew it was the right time was as I looked at the seeds that were laying on the ground. Once I saw little roots coming out of those seeds, then I knew it was around the right time to sow them into trays. The one disadvantage that I find in my area of leaving the seeds on the ground is that there's a certain percentage of them, I think it's either the birds or the squirrels or maybe the rats, that will eat the seeds. And so you'll find a lot of the seed casings with the little Samara wing on it, but there's actually no seed in there. So say out of picking up 10 seeds, you might find that 4 of them are really empty. And if you pick them up right away, there's a good chance that you'll get a higher percentage of seeds that are actually viable. Okay, so you've made the decision that you're going to go and collect seeds from the ground, and if you've ever done that, you know how tedious that could be. Some of the varieties of Japanese maple, the seeds are very tiny, and you'll be sitting there on your knees trying to pick up these little tiny seeds, and definitely you can do it. But here's a trick that I came up with, and it's not rocket science, but it works great, which is to take your little handheld vacuum, your Dyson or your dustbuster, and just vacuum them up off the ground. Now, your neighbors might think you've lost your mind, but I think this method works really well. You can get even the really tiny ones. And the best part is you're not getting your hands dirty, you're not getting any dirt under your fingernails. Works great. So it's really easy to take the seeds out of the vacuum, and you can remove some of the bigger twigs and leaves, but really you don't have to do much there. I find it works well to dump the seeds into my screening tray or onto a piece of newspaper, and then it makes it really easy to take out all of the leaves and any of the other junk that you don't want in there. And if you feel motivated, you can sort out the seeds by type. I have 2 distinct types of seeds that come off of my trees, and sometimes I'll sort those out. Just to show you how easy it is to collect these seeds, on the paper towel there are 10 seeds there, and you can see how many are in the bowl. And that's just using the vacuum to collect seeds for, I don't know, say 15-20 minutes. It's really easy to prepare the seed trays for planting. I use standard potting mix and add a little bit of perlite. From my previous experiences, just seems to work better for drainage. I used the 1020 seed trays, but you can really use anything you like. I take those and fill up the potting mix into them, almost to the top, maybe not quite, and pat it down. So to plant the seeds, you just spread them out evenly over the top of the potting soil. I do this pretty densely because I have a lot of seeds, and I just try and get as many in there as possible. You probably can't see this very well, but here's an example of a seed where the actual seed part is missing, but these obviously won't grow. You want to cover the seeds with a thin layer of potting soil. You can either use the Miracle-Gro, or I like to use sifted pine bark fines to cover up the seeds. Either works well. Just put a very thin layer, just enough to cover all the seeds, and so you don't see any seeds showing. So when you're done planting the seeds, you're going to want to water it down either with a watering can or a sprayer on a light setting. You don't want to disturb the top layer. Now you're only going to water it once now because since nothing's growing over winter, you won't need to water them again until they start growing in the spring. So here are all my trays with the seeds potted up. You can see that the lighter ones are the ones where I use the pine bark fines to cover up the seeds, and the dark ones are covered up with the Miracle-Gro mix. I cover my seed trays with a sheet of plastic. It's kind of plastic that covers up the fluorescent light fixtures in your ceiling tiles, and you can get that pretty cheaply at a hardware store. But I like to put that on there just to keep the squirrels and things from digging in the seed trays over the winter. And you want to put some adequate weight on the top of those so the wind doesn't blow that away. So just another comment about seeds. As you know, the Japanese maple seeds don't grow true to the form of the parent tree, although they retain some of the characteristics. But just so you know, because the genetics are random, the plants themselves may or may not be particularly hardy. So you may pot up a lot of your seeds and find out that after a year or two they die or they don't thrive. And that's, I think, just the genetics of it. So you're going to expect some loss of seeds. So even though you sow the seeds and you grow out in the first year, let's say 500 seedlings, you're not going to have 500 seedlings eventually. Maybe you will, but a lot of them will just die because they're not either heat tolerant or they're not lack of water tolerant, or they'll just be susceptible to pests. In fact, the strongest plants that you'll grow, especially if you're going to grow seedlings that you want to turn into bonsai eventually, are ones that naturally grow in your yard and manage to survive growing in the ground after a year or two. And a couple of the strongest plants I have, that's the way I found them. One was growing in a rockery, and one was growing underneath a shrub, and had kind of grown up to about 3 feet tall inside of another shrub. So, some of those have stood the test of time, and they will be maybe as strong or stronger than the parent tree. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you found some of that interesting. I would say definitely get seeds and try them and see what works for you. So I'll be back with another video, and I'll show you in the spring how these seeds leafed out, and to make sure I wasn't giving you any false information on how to propagate. and we'll see how those turned out. Well, have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.